This week on LearnOn, we're sharing a clip from a recent EVERFI webinar on the importance of allyship in education, featuring Vlad Khaykin of the Anti-Defamation League.
My name is Vlad Khaykin. I'm the National Director of Programs on Anti-Semitism for ADL on a new program that we created in partnership with EVERFI called BINA. BINA is a Hebrew word that means understanding. It's also an acronym that stands for Building Insights to Navigate Anti-Semitism and Hate. So I'm also somebody who has a story to tell about allyship. I came to the United States as a refugee from state-sanctioned anti-Semitism in the former Soviet Union. And so my work at ADL is very much inspired by the many civil rights leaders that came before and who sort of paid it forward and made it possible for me and my family and my community to be liberated from the oppressive conditions into which we were born. And so because it's Black History Month, I wanted to share a little piece of that history, particularly in the way that the allyship of Black Americans has drastically impacted me, my family, and my community. One of the greatest moments in my career was actually getting to work alongside Dr. King's draft speechwriter who helped draft the I Have a Dream speech, and lawyer, the individual who helped smuggle Dr. King's famous letter from a Birmingham jail out of that Birmingham jail and bring it to the world. And Dr. Clarence Jones told me a remarkable thing. He said that the success of the civil rights movement in raising the consciousness of America was enabled by the coalition we had with the American Jewish community. And I'm not just talking about writing checks. People gave their very lives. And indeed, as we see on the right, a photo depicting some of the folks from the Jewish community, as well as their accomplice, their Black accomplice, who gave their lives fighting for civil rights in the South. So specifically, I want to share a bit of wisdom that was shared with me by a friend of mine who is a Black Jewish educator named Tema Smith. She said that allyship is not a deed. It's about being in relationship. It's about being in partnership. We have to understand that the true allyship means understanding that none of us are free until all of us are free. That injustice everywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so we have to identify our own fate and the fate of our democracy with the fate of all of the constituent communities that make up that democracy. To understand that my fate is ultimately bound up with the fate of my countrymen and all human beings around the world. In order to be in allyship with other communities, it's really important that we organize around a common table, but we identify the particular contributions that we can make based on our positions, our networks, our sphere of influence, our skills, our capacities, our knowledge, and so on, to identify the particular unique contribution that we can make in this struggle. Because no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And it's about identifying those particular contributions that we can make. For educators, we know that educators can play a particularly important role in all of this. We know from our research that education is one of the surest ways to mitigate anti-Semitic, racist, and other bigoted opinions. Right here, we have some information from a survey that we did around the world that shows that whether we're talking about in the United States, in Western Europe, in Oceania, that education, quality education, is inversely correlated with bigoted attitudes and views. I want to say that it's important to defer to those whose lived experience or expertise makes them the best position to lead. Right? We shouldn't always assume that we know what's best for the communities with which we're trying to ally and to be good allies to. There remains 65 years after the promise of Brown v. Board of education equity. School systems are still not equitable. Black students are suspended and expelled at a rate 3 times greater. Predominantly Black and Latino schools are underfunded. They don't have the same resources, the same access to advanced education as those of their white peers. So I want to make sure that we think about these issues not only on an interpersonal level in terms of sort of mitigating biased attitudes and behaviors, but also we need to think about it on a systemic level. How can we ally with marginalized communities in order to advance more equitable systems where everybody can have the opportunities they need in order to succeed and to thrive as human beings? So thank you very much for taking the time to come to this webinar, and thank you for your work as educators. Your work is vastly more important than even you probably know.
Access all of our on-demand webinars and cost-free diversity, equity, and inclusion resources at everfi.com/K-12.